We are in the middle of one of the most shocking attacks in the history of cryptocurrency. This attack is so big that it makes people question how safe their digital lives really are. If you own crypto, you need to pay close attention to what I'm about to say, because what you do in the next 72 hours could mean the difference between keeping your assets safe and losing them forever. This is not advice about money. A big hole was found in a code repository that many wallet providers and blockchain projects use, according to the CEO of Ledger earlier today. Almost no one thought this was possible. Take a moment to think about that. Someone got into the backbone code that runs some of the most famous devices in the business. But here's what's important. People who take care of institutions are not impacted. The big security teams at schools don't get their code from these repositories. Do nothing is the first rule. I know that sounds crazy when all the news is screaming hack all over, but when things like this happen, people lose their money the fastest, not because their wallets run dry, but because they freak out. Someone texts, emails, or sees a pop-up message telling them they need to move their money right away to stay safe. Also, guess what? That sense of hurry is the trap. For the next 48 to 72 hours, you should put your hands together and walk away. Do not connect to any dApps, sign any deals, or even open any links that look sketchy. Stop right now. People who think they are smart and try to get ahead of the attackers are the ones who fall for the second scams. Attackers want chaos. Fear makes people messy. They know. Now is not a good time to use a journal, a hot wallet, or any other type of self-custody system. Instead, you should take a step back. Don't think about crypto for 3 days. Come back when things calm down. After that, patches and fixes will have been made, and it will be much easier to see how to move forward. But there's a bigger truth that no one wants to say. This is how self-custody really works. Being your own bank sounds great to everyone, right? That sounds strong. Do not forget, being your own bank also means being your own IT team. And unlike institutions which have teams of analysts and engineers and watch over their investments 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, retail investors don't have that option. Take a look. A lot of money is spent on defense by banks and managers. They keep an eye out for fishy behavior. They are always updating processes. They have backups, redundancies, and people who check the checkers. If you use self-custody, on the other hand, you don't get any of that. You, your wallet, and the hope that no one else has hacked your code. Today, we're seeing what happens when that hope comes true. It's interesting that the XRP record doesn't seem to be one of the networks that was directly hit. Most of the risk is in chains that depend on JavaScript connections a lot. Among them are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and more. But that doesn't mean you should think you can't lose. Hacks change over time. Attack paths change. Users shouldn't be careless just because the XRP system wasn't involved in this round. To sum up, the safest thing to do right now is to wait. Hold on tight. Hold on. Let this happen. The only way to get through crypto hacks is to learn how to do nothing when things go wrong. Let me go one step further. Even though this hack is getting a lot of attention, there is something much bigger going on behind the scenes that could change not only crypto, but also the whole US banking system. The US is suddenly moving very quickly to pass what is being called the Clarity Bill. You need to hear this if you've been wondering why there's such a rush, why the government ignored or even tried to kill crypto for years, but is now rushing to accept it. It has everything to do with one of the scariest stories out there. Using crypto assets like XRP to get rid of or reform the US national debt, which is $35 trillion. I know that sounds crazy, but it makes a lot more sense when you break it down than anyone thought possible. The best part is now here. This isn't just a guess from the fringes anymore. It's being talked about by people who work for big states. People in Vladimir Putin's camp have talked about this very thing. That should be enough to get your attention. Take a moment to think, why would the US, which already controls most of the world's money, suddenly become so interested in crypto? Why is there a Clarity Bill now? What's the rush to be the best in this new digital world? There is only one goal: to stay alive, getting by financially. The US has been in charge of two things, which is why the dollar has stayed strong: tech infrastructure and financial processes. But let me tell you the truth. No, crypto is both. It's the mix of business and technology. The future of money will be controlled by the person who sets up this new scheme. The US knows that China or someone else will move quickly if they don't. That's the reason for this quick change. Crypto was being attacked a year ago. There were crackdowns all over the place every single day. The news was bad. But now, Crypto is now being seen as important infrastructure, not just another type of asset, but a key part of the next phase of American finance. And XRP is the piece that makes it all possible. It is the bridge asset that has been tried quietly for years with central banks, and payment providers. That's the reason this moment is so important, because the U.S. will no longer be able to use crypto as a tool for national security. The floodgates are open. Institutions keep coming in. The rate of adoption is very fast. That's the direction we're going now. Let's learn more about this, because the idea that the U.S. could use crypto and maybe even XRP to restart or restructure its debt isn't just a crazy thought. At first glance, it doesn't seem possible. How could digital assets reduce huge amounts of debt? But it makes sense once you know how banking systems change over time. The U.S. government doesn't have to buy XRP, Bitcoin, or stablecoins worth trillions of dollars. It doesn't work that way. In its place, it should create a new financial system that lets everyone in the world take part in global payment, global liquidity, and the growth of its money supply. The U.S. gets a lot of flexibility all of a sudden by putting the U.S. dollar into blockchain infrastructure and making it the default settlement unit. Take some time to think about what debt is. A claim on dollars that will come later. It's a promise. If you can speed up the flow of dollars around the world, or if you can make your financial system work with new areas that it couldn't before, you change the math. All of a sudden, the debt load isn't as heavy because the denominator, which is world activity measured in dollars, is growing. This is where XRP comes in. Unlike Bitcoin and Ethereum, XRP was made to be a bridge currency for global liquidity. That is not just a guess. Ripple has been building that white paper, relationships, and use cases since 2012. The XRP ledger can settle deals in 3 to 5 seconds, and each one costs a very small amount of money. A lot of people miss the fact that it's not just about speed or price, it's also about being able to work with other hardware. As a bridge between currencies and systems, XRP lets people instantly change their money without going through a line of middlemen. This is important because the U.S. is having a very hard time. People are questioning the dollar's power. Different settlement methods are being tried out in many countries around the world. The BRICS countries are talking about not using the dollar at all. CBDCs are being worked on by central banks. The world is changing quickly, and the U.S. could lose the very thing that has made it the world's economic powerhouse if it doesn't offer a good digital option. How can I win the game the fastest? It's not making something from scratch. It would take 10 years. The fastest way is to use infrastructure that already exists, has been tried, and is connected to the rest of the world. That's why Ripple and XRP are unique. For many years, Ripple has worked with banks, banking companies, and even central banks. Some of their advisors are former employees of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury who know exactly how to add new technology to old processes. This is an example. Let's say the U.S. government decides to back a stablecoin backed by the dollar that works on multiple chains and can settle instantly across borders. For that to work, they need a liquidity bridge, which is something that can quickly switch currencies. That's where XRP really shines. XRP doesn't have to take the place of the dollar in that scheme. It makes it better. You can move the dollar faster, more cheaply, and to places it couldn't go before. That's one way that debt reform could happen without being direct. The U.S. gains more power by integrating the dollar more deeply into international trade through blockchain lines. The U.S. can print more dollars without crashing the system if there is more desire for them. To put it another way, debt that seems impossible to handle today will be possible tomorrow because the rules have changed. This is the main reason the Clarity Bill is important. Clarity isn't about making it safe for small buyers to buy their favorite coins. We need to set up a system that lets trillion-dollar companies build things and trust that the government will protect them. It's about putting a lot of money into blockchain infrastructure so that the U.S. can take the lead instead of following. Don't forget about the past. The U.S. was at the forefront of every new financial technology train that came out. Through the rise of SWIFT in the 1970s, the U.S. has always been in charge. Credit card networks, PayPal, and online banking are just a few examples. Why? Because being in charge of the money rails means being in charge of the power flow. With blockchain, we're now at the start of the biggest change in train history. And XRP isn't out of place here. This is not an if asset. It's already built into transportation routes all over the world. It is used by Japan's SBI. It has passageways in Latin America, Asia, and the Middle East. Even though the SEC case was making Ripple look bad, more and more people outside of the US started using it. That tells you something. The tech is too big for any government to handle. Picture this. The Clarity Bill is approved. Suddenly, banks, asset managers, and payment providers in the US are allowed to use crypto in ways they hadn't been able to before. Flows of money explode. Partnerships become official. XRP is a perfect part of the system because its infrastructure is already in place. One more thing to help you understand. Folks knew that online shopping would be big in the coming years in the early 2000s, but not all of them knew which companies would be the most successful. Amazon did it because it had the tools, the machinery, and the unwavering drive to grow. We're at the same point in time with blockchain. No one doubts that digital settlement is the way of the future. The question is which networks will be the most popular, the ones that are fast, can grow, and have links all over the world. Those things are true of XRP. Security for the whole country is another piece of this puzzle. This is where the US's change in tone makes a lot of sense. It was thought of as a danger and something outside the system for a long time, but now it's being seen as a way to make the country stronger. People will take the lead if the US doesn't. While other countries lead, the dollar gets weaker. Washington doesn't agree with that. So the story changes. As long as it helps the US, crypto goes from being an enemy to a friend. Now, this is where you should start to pay attention because you have to do something once it's called critical national infrastructure. It's no longer just a test of the market. It becomes very important. It gets locked in. Also, let's talk about how adoption makes people feel. A lot of people don't care about how tech works. It doesn't matter to them about validators, consensus methods, or throughput. They care about what happens. Can they send money right away? Can they get prices down? Can they get into fresh markets? That's the most important thing, and XRP makes that possible. On top of that, the US government says this technology will be used in our future banking system. That is the most important signal. Now is the time when adoption really takes off. Not just among individual investors, but also among businesses, groups, and governments. Don't forget that adoption grows very quickly. It looks like a crack in the glass. It starts out small with maybe just a few hallways, a few central banks trying it out, and a few payment companies turning it on. The cracks got bigger, though. The system is more useful with each new link. People who aren't with the new partner have to join or risk being left behind. It will soon be everywhere. That's how the network effect works. We've seen this before. Think back to email in the 1990s. It was a mess at first. It wasn't used by many people. But companies started to use it. It was used in schools. It was taken up by governments. All of a sudden, it was impossible to avoid. That's what blockchain tracks are going to be. Don't skip over the news that the US is thinking about crypto as a way to deal with its national debt. It's not really about exchanging debt for tokens. It's about changing the rules so that debt doesn't carry the same weight. It's about making the dollar work on digital lines, where it will be the default settlement layer. And things like XRP are what hold it all together. That's why time is so important. Ripple was made to look bad by the SEC just a year ago. The government is now aware that the US could fall behind without companies like Ripple. That's how quickly stories change when national security and financial power are at stake. Also, don't think this is only about Ripple or XRP. This is for the whole area of digital assets. But the assets that are set up to be useful, to be used in the real world, and to solve problems worth $1 trillion are the ones that will shine the best. XRP is one of the best examples of this right now. What you should do is this. Most people don't understand how big of a change we are on the verge of. Today, a hack may be all over the news, but behind the scenes, the US is getting ready for a change that could completely change the way global banking works for decades. And the assets that are already built into the system will gain the most when that change happens. If you look back far enough, history is full of times like this. The old method is no longer useful because of a new technology that comes out, and all of a sudden, the powerful group has to change or lose control. It was done by the printing machine. It was done by the steam engine. It was done on the web. This is now being done by blockchain tracks. The only difference is that this time the stakes are not just new ideas, they are trillions of dollars in global wealth, national debt, and political power. This is the important part. The flow of money around the world is controlled by the person or group that runs the main settlement system, but you can control pressure if you have control over your money. The dollar is the world's main currency, and SWIFT and the banking system are both run by US-aligned infrastructure. This is why the US has been able to pay for wars, new ideas, and huge projects. But with blockchain, these lines are being built from scratch. They move faster, cost less, have no borders, and don't care about party lines. The US now has a choice to make. Either it becomes the leader of this new system itself, or it waits for someone else to do it. At that point, XRP seems less like a risky bet and more like a tool for national security. Take a look at how XRP is designed. It's not proof of work like Bitcoin, which means it doesn't use a lot of energy like Ethereum. It's not stuck in arguments about how to scale. It was only meant to make world settlement work well, and the groups around it, Ripple, banks, and payment providers, have been very focused on making that use case a fact. When you look at Ripple's plan, it has never been about getting small players to use it. It's been about getting into the most basic parts of the banking system. It's not about following cool people on Twitter, but about getting into the boardrooms of banks. Now you know why Ripple has never stopped growing, even after years of lawsuits, doubt, and noise. Take a moment to think about where we are. Sending money across countries costs a lot of money and takes trillions of dollars every year. A lot of people don't have bank accounts or don't have enough money in their accounts. International trade needs quick, cheap lines badly. Also, countries are looking into CBDCs, but they know they need bridges so they can work with each other. It's like XRP was made just for this problem. Most people miss this part. They believe that XRP's value comes from guesses, news cycles, and stores' excitement about it. However, its real value comes from how useful it is on a large scale. Scale is coming too. If the US officially agrees with blockchain settlement, the door will swing open. Institutions don't try new things. Once they have understanding, they spend billions. Let me describe a clear case. Let's say the Federal Reserve says it will back a dollar-denominated cryptocurrency that can be used on more than one blockchain network. Banks, banking companies, and fintechs start using it right away. But cash is needed in these schemes. They need an asset that can act as a bridge between different fiat currencies and allow quick swaps. XRP steps in. Suddenly, trillions of dollars aren't moving back and forth between countries. They're moving right away. Just that change could make the whole world's banking system different. Now let's look at the domino effect. After a few big institutions join, the rest won't be able to stop. Take a look at Visa and MasterCard. Once one business started taking cards, all of them had to do the same. Once PayPal became well known, other companies had to make similar services. This is how to use network effects. A lot of people adopt when they adopt. And as soon as the US says that blockchain payment is not only allowed but also strategically important, this network effect will speed up very quickly. Countries that buy from the US will join. In order to keep up, allies will accept. Competitors will also have to join the scheme or they will miss out on global liquidity. This is one area where XRP really shines. It's already set up globally. East Asia, West Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East are all places where Ripple has relationships. You can see the tracks. They only need the US to say go for them to move from pilot projects and corridors to wide use. And once that time comes, a floodgate of value will open. In the short run, it doesn't matter if XRP is worth $1 or $5. It has to do with how important it is to the world settlement system. If it does, there is a lot of room for growth. It's almost impossible to figure out. This doesn't mean that the trip will be smooth or straight, though. There are times when people don't want to use a disruptive tool. The internet was full of doubters. Some people said that no one would use email, cybershop, or pay for things online. But in the end, the clear usefulness overcame all objections. It's the same here. Once the usefulness is clear, doubt doesn't matter. One more thing to think about. As soon as the US uses this tech, it gives everyone else political cover. Some institutions are afraid to fully jump in right now because they don't want to risk getting in trouble with the government. But the doubts go away as soon as Washington signs it. There are hedge funds, pension funds, insurance companies, and multinational businesses that all help out. The base of liquidity grows very quickly. At that point, news stories like global settlement volume on blockchain surpasses SWIFT start to appear, or XRP corridors are responsible for X% of money sent across borders. These won't always be imaginary. These things will happen naturally as acceptance curves begin to rise. Let's make this even bigger now. The effects on world politics are huge. If the US stays at the center of blockchain settlement, it will keep the dollar's top spot for decades. The US could lose its banking crown if it doesn't, and China or someone else gets there first. Because of this, it's not just about tech. It has to do with power. It's about staying alive. That's why the tone is changing so drastically. This is where people like us need to pay attention, because wealth doesn't just move when world systems change. For those in the right place, it bursts. People who were early users of internet businesses became famous. People who were early adopters of e-commerce, cloud computing, and mobile apps made a lot of money. This is now how things are set up with blockchain payment and assets like XRP. Simply put, this is the kind of alignment that only happens once every generation. The world system is broken and needs to be fixed. You have a tool that can fix it. Governments are starting to understand how important it is. You already have adoption curves moving. That combo is more than just a sign of change. It makes sure of it. The real story is about the infrastructure of tomorrow, even though hacks and fear are in the news today. You'll know we're not just watching markets if you can cut through the noise. We're seeing the foundations for the next age of finance being laid.